Welcome back, folks. This is the Maine Prepper, and here is the IFAK loaded up. And it's fairly robust, as you can see. I managed to fit everything in there somewhat well. There are some things that we'll talk about here in just a second. First, though, I should point out, I pulled a few things out, and I'm going to be upgrading components as I go along. As more and more bandages come in, I've ordered some things in the mail, and I'm trying to do this one piece at a time, much as I encourage you to do the same. Now, if you have the money to go out and buy everything at once, that's great. Even if you do, it takes a while for things to come in the mail to you. So what I did was I pulled out one of the triangular bandages. I'm going to replace the one that's in there with one of the military type issue, which is a little bit thicker quality cloth, but otherwise this bandage is actually pretty good. However, I have replaced this with combat action tourniquet, or rather combat application tourniquet, and I've also taken the stretchy bandage out and put in some of the more modern stuff, and I'll show you this in just a second. So let's cut this off. I'm going to break this all out and spread it on the table and show you a few tricks. And this is what it looks like when it's all put together. All of these different components, they do fit in here in some place or another. Now, once you get your kit put together, you need to leave at least the basic components in exactly the same place. You'll notice I have my combat application tourniquet right here up front where I can get it or someone else can. They know where it is. The second thing that's going to be most crucial is right behind this is where our actual bandage materials are for some of our major trauma type injuries. Scissors, of course, as well. Most of the stuff, in fact, that's trauma related is on the back side of the pouch, and most of the things that are first aid related are on the front side of the pouch. And I'll show you this. I'm going to take this in reverse order and pull it apart. First, let's start with the trauma part and take these out. This is a combat application tourniquet. The red tip is simply allows you to pull this through this end when you're putting it on. I have this set up right now in one-handed mode so that one person could put this on themselves one-handed. This is my stretchy bandage material, and this is basically a V-trap. You can get this in multiple colors. I think this is an upgrade to this, which there's nothing wrong with this. This is fine, but this is self-adhesive, and this is very useful. I've used this a lot when I cut these fingers off and other injuries. This has been a very useful item to have in my kit. Behind that, I have my quick clot, and that's always going to stay in here. I may upgrade and get a bigger one, but for now the quick clot is always going to stay here. It's a very good item to have. Behind this are my trauma type bandages, including my abdominal pads as well as gauze sponges. These will be replaced later with actual Israeli type bandages, and they'll take the place of this. The Israeli bandages, by the way, come in a thick polyethylene type container, meaning that while these are perfectly fine for us right now as a standby, later on we're going to upgrade to a much more robust. However, they're pretty expensive. They're going to run you between $5 and $10 a piece. Our surgical scissors, or rather our EMT type scissors for cutting away trousers and whatnot. And behind that, I have hooked into this string loop my hemostats. And hemostats are very good because these are useful, in fact, if you have an artery or something you need to pinch off, but they're also good. They help you with a number of things, including pulling, if you've got to pull out a splinter or anything else. I find these so useful that I use them in other applications around the barn and the garage as well. And if you don't know anything about the hemostats, they essentially they pinch down and they lock. I've got a curved and a straight pair, and I like them hemostats a lot. And I don't need to get the really long ones. These are basically the 4-inch job. You can get these very inexpensively, made out of surgical steel off of eBay for a couple of bucks a piece. Always have hand sanitizer. I'm very big about keeping wounds clean. You don't have the option and the luxury of getting diseases in the field and not having them turn into major issues, including your wound going septic. Down in the bottom, I've stuffed my gloves and my roll of this very good cloth type surgical tape. All right, let's look on the other side now. Let's pull off the components that are on the outside first. Again, this is my triangular shaped bandage, and I'm going to replace this with a military type issue, which is basically a dark green, and it's a bit thicker, the ones in the military issue. And you can get those, sometimes find those fairly inexpensively. I think I must have 1 million of them that were issued to me over the years. We used them for drive-on rags. A Sharpie. This is very important if you're going to send anybody back to a casualty or an aid station, or if you're working on somebody and you need to keep notes. Let's say you have several people you're working on. You want to write things down like when you last tightened their tourniquet. And we used to put that on the forehead. You actually take them right on the forehead. This, of course, isn't going to rub off or wear off too quickly. So I've got some of it on my left knee, in fact, right now from when the doctor operated on me a few days ago. Sharpie's a good thing to have. Pair of precision types tweezers, and you can see these have like a plastic tip on them, okay? And this is really useful for getting small things out and specks. It's probably not useful for doing heavy duty work because these tips are plastic and they will break, but I haven't broken these yet, and I find them to be very useful. Now, what's in the back? This is going to be the part that's something that many of you may not have seen before. Let's pull all of this out. This is essentially all of our first aid items. Inside of here, I've got 3 separate pouches. All right. One of them is my medicines, and I'm going to show you this in just a second. My different medicines. This one, and this will be added to a little bit as time goes on, are my benzalkonium chloride, basically betadine antiseptic towelettes, as well as my isopropyl alcohol pads, and of course my bee sting relief item. Next one, and I haven't added to this yet, this will be all of the little band-aids and butterfly sutures. We really won't go into that. That's just something, every once in a while you'll get some more band-aids. I'll buy another box of band-aids and throw a bunch in there. These all have shelf lives, by the way, these band-aids and bandages. They tend to dry out after a period of time and you have to replace them. And then this is just an item that I throw in there. This are the, you recognize some of these are the Tylenol and the other little packaged pain relievers that came with the kit. I threw them in there with some throat lozenges and stuff because it's nice when you have a first aid kit to actually have the kind of stuff you have in your first aid kit at home. And these little devices here, these are like a saline wash. What you do is you mix this with, it's a sinus rinse, you mix this with some warm water, and you essentially, you don't snort it, but you drink it through your nose and it flushes your sinuses out. It's a bit of a trick to do that, but I've done that for my allergies, especially when you get into an area that's just infested with pollen. Let's break into the medicines though. This is the part I want you to pay attention to because this is going to be very different, I think, than some of the things many of you have seen. All right, now this is a package of Allegra D's, and I have some allergy issues, especially up here with all these pine trees. This is something that many people don't understand. You can have a lot of different pills, but if you try to throw all these pill bottles into there, you're not going to have the space, and space is at a premium in here. These are my prescription medicines, and you'll notice on the outside I've written the medicine and I've written the milligrams on there, so I'll know what the dosage is in case I forget. And I have my Nexium. I've got some ibuprofens in here, and I put little instructions. Ibuprofen 3 times a day for pain, what it's for. I've got my oxycodone, pain, acetaminophen. Essentially, it's a pain issue, a pain pill. This, however, is more of an allergy pill. These, some of you may recognize, there's something like a betadine. It's diphenhydramine, and that's just an antihistamine, and you take one every 4 hours. These bad boys will knock you out and knock you down, I'm going to tell you. So especially if you're like me and you don't drink or you've never really taken drugs, you don't know what it does to somebody like me. I take even the tiniest pain pill, it flat knocks me on my rear end. All right, folks, this has been the Maine Prepper, and that's the first aid kit, the IFAK so far. In the next videos, we're going to get into tourniquets, and we're going to talk about how to use the combat application tourniquet. And I'm also going to show you how to make a tourniquet using a number of implements, including your triangular shaped bandage. The ability to use things that you have at hand to render first aid is going to be an important thing, and that's going to be some innovation on your part. However, This you can put on with one hand, and that is a huge bonus, and we'll talk about that, and we'll actually display and demonstrate it later on. It comes in two modes, one-handed mode and of course two-handed. Folks, this has been the Maine Prepper, and in our next videos on the IFAK, we're going to get into things like suturing, and we'll talk about scalpels, etc. But for now, this is my recommendation of what you should do with your IFAK. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, especially those of you that have been with me since the beginning, and welcome aboard to all the new folks and everybody in between. Thank you. Remember, don't just survive, I want you to thrive. One final thing, when you go to load this back up, rather than trying to fight with these elastic stays right here, just turn it inside out first, like so. Then, when you go to put your medicines and everything else that are going to go in this back pouch, it's going to fit in a lot easier. You're not going to have to fight with it. You're going to tuck it up in there, and you get it in there very neatly, okay? And then from there, just reverse it, turn it back inside out, and you can start loading it up. Too easy, right? Okay, folks. Hey, this has been the Maine Prepper. I just thought I'd throw that in at the end part. But you want to load from the inside, the outside towards the inside when you do. And we'll have a look later when we replace some of these bandages and upgrade a few more components in here as they arrive in the mail. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. When you go to load this back up, it's really difficult to get things neatly back into this top pouch. And this is where we want to put all of our medicines and little tiny band-aids, basically our daily first aid kit or our minor first aid kit. The trauma gear is going to go in the outside where we can get to it quickly. This is not a life or death if you can't get your cough drops out, okay? But it could be a life or death if you can't get to your IFAK. So you want to put this stuff in here, but it's kind of a booger to put it in. Here's something I found out. These little stays, don't cut them, they get in the way, but this is easier. Just turn it inside out, like so, okay? Now, we can put our meds and everything else up inside of here neatly. Too easy, right? And then from there, we'll just turn it back inside, right side in, and we'll load the rest of the gear in later. Hey folks, this has been the Maine Prepper. Thank you for tuning in, and we shall see you tomorrow.